Hello everybody, it's me, it's PokemonTripHD, and welcome back to some more Dragalia Lost content. And in today's video, I'm going to be giving a unit review or analysis on Xander. This is normal Xander, not Dragalia Xander or anything. This is his first form, his standard form, not his final form. So in this video, like I said, I'm just going to give an analysis on Xander and explain why I think he is one of the best 5-star adventures, period, or 5-star water adventures. Well, if he's one of the best, he's definitely one of the best water ones. So without further ado, let us jump right in. So Xander is a water unit, like I said. He's a water attacking unit, which means the place in his endgame content is going to be in Hybrid Hilda as a DPS dealer, since he is an attacker. Now, he unfortunately cannot perform too well in Hybrid Hilda, but he's still usable. But I'll talk more about Hybrid Hilda once we get to abilities. So it's not going to talk about that too much just yet. Let's talk about his sword. His weapon type. His weapon type is sword. Sword weapon types are actually very good for force striking and for breaking the overdrive bar. That's the main thing swords are good for, and that's the reason that you would want to use a sword. So he's good for force strikes to break the overdrive bar a little bit faster. And remember, the optimal combo for a sword is 2 or 3 hits and then a force strike. You don't want to get into your jumping and then flying down attack because they just waste too much time. But you can do that if you want to get some more skill gain. But again, I don't think it's worth it, especially for Xander's kit. Like I said, we'll talk about Xander's kit once we get to abilities, since that's where the meat of things are, especially for Xander. So his maximum HP is 757, and his maximum strength is 503. His max might is 2500, and the co-ability he brings is Dragon Haste. Now, of course, it's Dragon Haste 15, which is good, but it's not one of the best co-abilities. There's better co-abilities out there, just like strength or crit rate, etc., etc. But it's still good. It could be useful for some instances, his co-ability. Like say high mercury or anything. It's not like you want to bring him towards high mercury because he's water and you want to bring wind, but just for example, you want to get that dragon up before the break. It's not necessary, but you do want to get it before the break for extra DPS. His max might doesn't really matter too much. His HP is 757, and that is ranked 71 out of 100 plus, so not really too good. And his maximum strength is 503, which is actually ranked 18, which is actually pretty good. The highest I believe is around 520, so he's not too far behind that, and he actually makes up for that a little bit later on with his abilities, which I'll get into soon. And again, I just keep talking about his abilities, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So let's talk about his skills. His skills, he has 2 attacking skills. First up is Majestic Tide, SP cost of 2714. SP cost is about average, and same thing for his skill 2. Royal Maelstrom, SP cost of 4817. Both these SP costs are about average. But let's talk about his second skill first, actually. Let's talk about the second one first. So, deals 3 hits of 248% water damage to surrounding enemies. It's honestly not anything special. It's pretty lackluster. If anything, I think that's even less damage than usual skill 2s do. His skill 2 is nothing insane. It's honestly not that great. It's nothing crazy. And the only reason it's actually going to be good is because of the worm prints you throw on him. If you throw on him a skill damage plus worm print, he's access to the Shining Overlord, which is plus 40% skill damage. So that's pretty much the only reason that skill is actually good. It's a good attacking skill, like I said. Well, it's not a good attacking skill. It's an attacking skill. It brings more DPS towards him, actually. But in terms of actual attacking skills, it's nothing too great. But Majestic Tide, his first skill, is a good attacking skill. It deals 1 hit of 825% water damage to enemies in a line. The more buffs the user has, the higher the skill boost received and the higher the damage. Plus 5% skill damage per buff. Now that's skill damage, not added damage. So it's not going to go up to 830% with an extra buff. It's going to go up to something crazy. 825% times 1.05. I don't know what that is. But that's what it goes up. It goes up on a different kind of gauge than actual, just adding an additional 5% damage. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. Now, it's talking about buffs on Xander, and buffs are anything like strength up buffs, defense up buffs, healings, anything like that, healing over time. And those all count as buffs, and they can rack up. I believe the maximum on here is 9 or 10, so you can rack up quite a few amount of buffs on him to rack up on that skill 1. It's actually a good skill 1. Like I said, about average SP cost, and you can get that off fairly often and get off a ton of damage. So skill 1 is good. Skill 2 kind of meh, but skill 1 is actually very nice. Now let's hop into the abilities. His ability, first up, is Striker's Strength. Now this is the meat of things. Here is where Xander begins to shine. Increases strength by 6% for every 3 enemies defeated with 4 strikes, up to 5 times per quest. So quite a bit in there, but all you really need to know is it increases your strength for every 3 enemies you defeat with 4 strikes, and it works 5 times in a quest. Now it goes up by 6%, 5 times, that's 30%. He can increase his strength permanently for the remainder of the quest by 30% just by killing enemies with 4 strikes. That's okay. Now let's talk about his next one. 4 strike increases 4 strike damage by 50%. So okay, those two synergize, and then stun res, which we'll talk about later. But let's talk about the first two. So his first one gets higher strength by killing enemies with 4 strikes, and he has also a 4 strike ability up, which is really, really good. Now remember, swords are actually good for 4 strikes. That is where they shine. The reason you would use a sword, over like a blade or anything, is for their 4 strikes. They can break the overdrive bar really fast. Now, Xander also has a 4 strike increase ability, which means he's going to be able to break the overdrive bars even faster with his 4 strikes. Remember, 4 strikes break overdrive bars faster already, and he has a 4 strike up, it's going to break it even faster. So it's just really good all around in terms of breaking bosses with a 4 strike. Now let's talk about striker strength. This goes off of his 4 strike up. It's going to be easier to kill enemies with 4 strikes because he has extra damage on his 4 strikes by 50%. And it's going to make it easier for him to rack up those strength buffs. Now, these are buffs. Even though they're permanent, they're buffs. So you can rack up to 5 buffs on Xander just by himself. You don't need anybody else on the team to rack up those buffs. You just need a Xander. That's 5 buffs to go on to that skill 1, which increases the skill 1's damage. That's 25% extra skill damage on that skill 1, which is really, really good. And you can keep racking them up. And again, depending on a word prints, you get even more and even more. If you stack up some Slayer Strength or Striker Strength prints, then you can get even more buffs just on killing enemies. This is the reason Xander shines so much, and he is a king. He's your king in wave-based content. Now, unfortunately, that is just wave-based content. In terms of bosses, he is pretty good for bosses because he can break them really fast with his 4 strike up, but he will miss out on that 30% strength bonus because there's no enemies to defeat other than that one boss. So that is a bit of a downside, but on things like facility events, which I'll show some gameplay of the facility event, A Wish to the Winds, and Xander clearing it a little bit later on in the video, he's actually very good for facility events because there's so many enemies. He can rack up that 30% strength very easily, and again, for the boss, he can break it fast, and it's just all around a great time. So he's very good for wave-based content, but again, for bosses, he's still good for bosses, but the reason he's not amazing for bosses is because he has stun res. Now, stun res reduces susceptibility to stun by 100%. So he has resistance to stun, but unfortunately, stun is not Hybrid Hilda. Hybrid Hilda inflicts burn, not stun. And burn is actually a pretty bad one because it lowers his HP down to 1. So you're going to need something like Daniel to heal him if you want to bring him to Hybrid Hilda or bring him with burn res prints. But again, at that point, why are you bringing Xander unless you just want to like do some fun clears or anything like that? Really, if you're looking for a safe clear, just bring like a Fjorm or something else. That's not Xander. But Xander is usable in Hybrid Hilda, but like I said, it kind of hinders him because he doesn't have burn res. But alas, it's not going to affect him too much. He's useful for pretty much every other piece of content besides high dragons like Hybrid Hilda. So that's just something to keep in mind. Hybrid Hilda is not going to be the greatest, but he can clear facility events, any facility event. He doesn't even need to have a advantage. It doesn't need to be against flame enemies. He can do it against any enemy that's not a win because that's going to be less damage than usual. But he can do it against every other type of facility event. So just something to keep in mind. Those are his abilities. Very good facility events, like I said. Unfortunately, not the greatest for high dragons. Now, that's his set. Overall, his kit synergizes very, very well together, especially because of his abilities and his first skill. Everything synergizes very well. His strength is going to get increased even more because of his striker strength. And overall, very, very, very strong just from those. And it makes him even stronger depending on the recommendations you have. My recommendations for worm prints would be the Shining Overlord and Stellar Show. What does the Shining Overlord do? Well, it gives, like I said, 40% skill strength up for both of his skills, and he does have 2 attacking skills, so that's very good for him. And it gives a shapeshift dragon claws, which basically every time you shapeshift, you get extra increase on your damage, and that's a permanent buff, so another permanent buff to add on to that Majestic Tide damage. And then Stellar Show gives crit damage plus, I believe, 15% and 4 strike plus 50%. So increases force strikes even farther and offers some crit damage. Now, why am I offering Stellar Show? Crit damage isn't the greatest because he's not going to crit too often, but if you bring Dragalia Jean on him instead of, like I said, I'm not recommending Dragalia Jean because it's not better, but if you bring Dragalia Jean instead of Leviathan, you can get higher crit rate, and then, that combined with Stellar Show is actually a very nice combination. Now, there's some other Wyrmprint recommendations. Like I said, Slayer Strength and Striker Strength are great options for Xander. There's other things, other classics like Levin's Champion, which just go really well with him, and some other 4-strike prints that are available, but I believe Stellar Show is just the best all around. So those are my Wyrmprint recommendations. Now for Dragon recommendations, I would recommend Body Annoy or Leviathan. Body Annoy is, of course, a budget option. They're both strength dragons. I recommend pure strength dragons over something like Jean, mainly because Jean crit rate, it's kind of inconsistent, and sometimes you're going to get the bonus damage with his 4 strikes, but then sometimes you're not. So that's the reason Leviathan's just better. You get all around, you're always getting 60% damage on those 4 strikes. So that's the reason I recommend Leviathan over Jean. Leviathan's on the right, Body Annoy on the left. Leviathan's obviously better because he offers 6% strength, while Body Annoy offers only 45%. Dragalia Jean, like I said, is another great option. She offers 45% strength just like Body Annoy, but also offers crit rate up on her. It's kind of like a secondary ability. So she's one of the very few dragons that actually offer a secondary ability, and hers is crit rate up, which is very good. Again, for Xander, personally, I would not recommend Dragalia Jean over Leviathan. For some adventurers, Dragalia Jean is better, but for Xander specifically, he's not better. The crit rate increase is by 20%, by the way. It's 45% strength and 20% crit rate on Dragalia Jean. So, yeah, that is Xander's recommendations. There are some other recommendations for Wyrmprints and etc., but like I said, those are probably the best that you can run on him for the maximum damage. Now then, I'm going to get into some gameplay of Xander as I talk and discuss where I think he ranks in terms of tier list and just why he is, some teammates for him, some weapons for him, and why I think he's really, really good. So, first of all, let's talk about teammates. Does he really need teammates? No, he doesn't really need teammates, to be completely honest. Xander, I did this one solo. I had no teammates with me, and it was still pretty easy clear. It didn't even take me more than like 3 attempts to get this clear. So it's honestly, he doesn't need any teammates to get the clear, especially for wave-based content. He can, well, that's what I'm really talking about. He shines in wave-based content. Rather than high dragon, so I use him in wave-based content. He works for Imperial Onslaughts as well, but facility events just a better showcase of his strength than it is for Imperial Onslaughts. So something to keep in mind. Is he good for Mercurial Gauntlet? He is good for Mercurial Gauntlet. He's very good for Mercurial Gauntlet because he can break Fafnir's overdrive bar even faster. So for Mercurial Gauntlet, again, he's a great one. So just another thing to keep in mind. Also, is he good for Hybernhilda? Like I said, I've mentioned this plenty of times. He's good for Hybernhilda. But like, just why would you use him over something that's just safer? You need a really good Thaniel, and speaking of teammates, let's go and talk about Thaniel. You need a really good Thaniel to bring him to Hybernhilda. If you're not bringing a really good Thaniel, like I said, you need to bring some Wyrmprints that offer burn res, because without burn res, he's pretty much going to die unless you have like a super buff like team that just breaks Hybernhilda like for a speed clear or something. But you're going to need a Thaniel to clear that burn from him. You're going to need a good Thaniel to clear that burn from him. You're going to need a highly trained Thaniel to heal, to cleanse that burn, and to get the clears with the Xander on the team. But like I said, it is possible. It's highly possible. But for other content, other than Hybernhilda, Nurse Aileen's the best healer to bring alongside him. Other than healers, some good teammates, I would say Dragonil Cleo and Elisan are great teammates to bring alongside Xander. They both offer buffs. Ellie more so. Ellie offers buffs. Straight buffs, which really help Xander with his DPS. Like I said, he doesn't really need teammates to get the clears. I didn't bring any teammates, but if you need teammates, it will be much easier to get the clears. In terms of weapon, just bring his standard 5-star elemental, the water one, of course, and you should be able to get the clear very easily with the standard 5-star elemental. If you're not bringing that for budget options, just bring the 4-star or bring a void weapon or something. There's plenty of options out there if you're on a budget, but the standard 5-star elemental is the best one. So. Those are the teammates I would recommend. Of course, there's other teammates that work well for him. There's other adventures that work well for him. What tier I think is in? Easily tier 1. 100% tier 1. I don't think there's going to be a reason for him to not be tier 1. He needs to be power creeped like hail to be out of tier 1. So very good for Xander to be used in facility events. And yeah, that's my review on Xander. I think he's an amazing unit. I highly recommend using him for facility events if you have him. And yeah, that's everything. If you have anything else to add to the conversation, just post them in the comments down below. If I have anything else to add, I'll put it in the comments or update the description. And yeah, that's going to be everything. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to see other reviews on certain units or anything, just let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.